Hanger is live, and we are live. Hello, everybody. Hi, this is Sherry Sams, founder of Black Career Women's Network. I want to welcome you all to our Wednesday night career conversation. We're going to be talking about managing your emotions in the workplace. This is going to be a good topic to talk about. But before we start, for anyone who is viewing who is not a member, please join us at our website, bcwnetwork.com, or you can also follow us on Twitter and also on Facebook using the same handle as well. I want to introduce the ladies that we have on the panel tonight. Hello, ladies.
Hi, hi.
First, we introduce our national network leader. Her name is Monica McIntyre, and she is local here with me in Cincinnati, Ohio. Monica, say hello.
Hi, ladies. How's everyone doing?
Now we have two special guests. We did have three. We're sorry we had some technical difficulties, so she was not able to get on to the Hangout, but that's okay. We're going to make sure we get her on the next one. But I want to introduce Venice Johnson. Venice is a career coach in San Francisco, California, but she also specializes in personal branding. So. Yeah. Her company is called On the Move Careers, and you can find her at otmcareers.com. So, Venice, say hello to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hangout. I'm excited, Sherry.
We're glad you're here. All right, and our next lady is, she is repping my hometown of OKC. Whoop, whoop, go Thunder. In Oklahoma City. She's a public relations and also is a marketing coordinator for one of the local television stations in Oklahoma City. And she also has a website called That PR Chick. It's at thatprchick.com. So Stephanie, say hello to everyone.
Hey, hi everybody.
All right, well let's get down to it, talking about managing our emotions. I did a little bit of research before we started, and I found 5 common emotions that we tend to experience in the workplace, and I kind of want to go through these, and I want us to share our experiences and give the viewers an opportunity to also have some Q&A with us, and we can answer some of those questions as well. So I want to start with frustration and irritation. You know, kind of think back to some of the positions you've had. For Nice, you're an entrepreneur now, but you worked for someone before. But even as an entrepreneur, you still feel frustration and irritation.
Yes.
You know, Monica all knows that too well. Stephanie, I'm sure you do too. Let's lead off and talk about frustration and irritation in terms of how do you manage that emotion in the workplace? And what triggers that?
Right. You know, Sherry, as I was doing my research on this as well, you know, not just from experiential, but also from the point of, you know, employees and managing employees. So one of the things is oftentimes we bring our own personal frustration into the workplace. And we are carrying over those dissatisfactions from our personal relationships, whether it's kids, whether it's friends, whether it's spouses or loved ones. Sometimes we bring that emotion in the workplace, and then it shows up and comes out as anger, and it comes out as poor performance. And a lot of times the folks that we are around, that gets misunderstood and misconstrued. So that's one of the ways that it can show up in the workplace. Another way that I've experienced it showing up in the workplace is when I go into an environment and you want to get started in your job and you want to contribute to your job as quickly as possible, and sometimes you don't have all the resources and the tools that you need to really perform, you know, at the level of expectation. And the communication breaks down because we don't feel comfortable or confident in going to ask for help or support. And so couple that with something outside of the workplace not happening right, and you bring the two of those together, and it's like dynamite that could really explode, and it could really lead to the breakdown of your personal brand.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, you know, I mean, so in terms of personal brand, I mean, I know for me that I've had some levels of frustration, especially when I used to be in a manager role, in terms of being able to accomplish the goals I need to, and you got limited resources. I think Monica and I have had a conversation about this before. Right. And it's so hard to kind of just, you know, let that go, especially if you're passionate about what you're doing. that can come off so, as they think we're being forceful or we're being too aggressive.
Right.
You just want to actually do a good job. That's all you want to do, and that can be misconstrued. What about irritation, though? What about times, and I really, for me, has come from a coworker more so than anybody.
The irritation from a coworker?
Yeah, just irritated with the way they communicate or the way that they're going about the workload, how they may deliver, how they may deliver the message to you in order to work with you. That can cause irritation in terms of
it. Absolutely. Right, it absolutely can, Sherry. One of the suggestions I have, when I work with private clients and they're onboarding to that new position, or even if they're currently in a role and they're looking to move up the corporate ladder, I express to them that it's important for you to develop a relationship and a rapport with your colleagues. Mm-hmm. And you need to do that outside of the workplace environment. So that means going to lunch with them. Happy hour is fine, but you need to do that early on in happy hour, not after you've had several drinks. But you want to make sure, or take them out to lunch. And I think it's important to get to know who they are as the professional, how they've been successful in doing their jobs, what advice that they would recommend for you to be successful, and really getting clear on how can we support each other towards the goals that the company or the department has set for us. So communication really is the key, and developing a good rapport from the beginning of that relationship, is really important. And even if you aren't able to develop it from the beginning of the relationship, as soon as you start to have that experience that there's some irritation possibly happening between you, or that person is experiencing that, then really nip that in the bud by inviting them out and just openly apologize if you've offended them in any way at all, and offer the opportunity to get a better understanding so that you can work together successfully moving forward. So communication is going to be the key, and opening up, to start the dialogue is going to be the key.
Well, I'm the kind of person that I do not hide my emotions well. It's like all over my face.
Right.
So if I get a tad bit irritated, it's either in my eyes or the way that my mouth turns or something. So I have to be mindful of that. What I'm thinking about. How this is really kind of getting on my nerves now.
Right.
What my face looks like, because I'll forget, and I may not say anything, but you'll see it all in my face.
And Sherry, I have the same issue where I wear it on my sleeve, and I have the tendency to put out the disclaimer to my coworkers. Look, I know I might seem irritated. It's not you. It's not what you're bringing to me. It's just that I have a lot going on right now. So please excuse if it seems like I'm brash. Please excuse my behavior, because I'm not upset in any way. I have a tendency, I've learned that I need to put that disclaimer sometimes out there, because if I don't, it is misinterpreted. Yeah. So, definitely been there.
I think the other thing you can do too with that, and adding to what Stephanie is saying, is that you can also practice mindfulness. And mindfulness is, with that emotion, that energy that comes up, and you're starting to get that heat rush, like, okay, I'm about to get mad, I'm about to get irritated. Yeah. The mindfulness says, I'm starting to feel something that's possibly negative about this experience. So one thing I want to do is to check my facial expressions. You can feel it when you're frowning, you can feel that. So just check it when that's happening, and then really put yourself on pause and say, okay, let me keep my face clear. Let me look at my posture. Let me shift that body energy and that language so that this person isn't getting on the defense, about what it is that we're talking about. So mindfulness is something that we get to practice on a regular basis to help us to become more conscious about how we're showing up and interacting with others, and really the energy that we're transferring, when we are connecting with others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I tend to work with tunnel vision. If I'm in the zone, and my daughter will come in here, or if I'm at work, like my boss, she does it all the time. I mean, I'll be in the zone working, and she's like, "You come here in my office," and I'm thinking, "Would you leave me alone?" And then I have to make FaceTime before I go in there. Like, interrupted by flow. And now, what do you want? It's simple that she gets it done. But now I'm like 2 hours behind because I've been fooling with you for the last 2 hours for something that really we could have planned that, put it on my schedule. But I actually had to go to her and say, you know, in order for me to stay productive in terms of meeting, you know, what you need for me to do, you know, if you have something that comes up impromptu like that, allow me some time to be able to wrap up what I'm doing in a place where I can put it down and come back to it without just abruptly leaving it where it is.
Yeah. Right. I think that's great.
I had to manage her that way to let her know I need that time.
Right. I think that communication, that open communication, that you had to set boundaries. So one of the things that probably resonates the most in the Black women's community is respect. And so, you know, there's Stephanie laughing. I think I hit a button. So that word respect is like, you know, you're not going to disrespect me. You should give me the respect, and so on and so forth. So here's a different perspective to think about respect. So we either demand respect or we command respect. Demanding respect is when you're telling somebody how they should be with you. Commanding respect is when you teach someone how they should be with you. So it's really important for us to be in teaching mode all the time, to teach people how we want to be treated. And Sherry, you did a really good example of communicating to your boss. You know, I'm working on a project that has a deadline on it, so I want to focus and finish on this project. And then let that person say, okay, I forgot you were working that way. And or teaching, you know, your boss along with anyone else's boss, you know, maybe there's a signal that you need to put up or a sign. So maybe you put something up on your desk that says currently working on the project, you know, please, you know, unless it's urgent, you know, please give me until whatever the stated time that you think you're going to finish your project. If you have a door to your office, closing your door. If you have a cubicle, and you don't have a door in your cubicle, you might put a sign out on the top of the side of the cubicle, or you might say, when I hang out this red flag, you know, on the cubicle corner, this red flag means do not enter that I'm working on a project.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say on that too is also when you're being interrupted at work and it irritates you, then I think it's important to ask the person, you know, you're asking me to stop what I'm doing to do something, and I have a priority here. So which of these priorities, which of these tasks would you like for me to focus on? And then let the person choose. And guarantee when that person says, oh, so you're working on this project right now, so let me let you finish that, and then you come to me.
Yeah.
So I think that you gave us, you know, an example of how to use that communication, and I want to add to that and say let's make sure that we're in respect commanding mode and not in respect demanding mode.
Yes, because respect demanding mode.
She's so smooth with that.
Yeah, that was very smooth.
When you know what, it's taken a lot of practice and a lot of uncomfortable and irritable moments, you know, to get to that level
that was so smooth.
Yeah, that was very smooth. I'm going to have to somehow remember that.
Well, the good news, we got a replay, so you can replay this over and over.
I will replay it several times.
But it's come through a lot of practicing, and it's come through a lot of uncomfortable situations, because here's the reality. Most of us are not in a position where we can get rid of customers, you know, or we can just not show up at work the next day.
Right.
And we have to go back to that environment, and we really get to check our emotions and figure out, how do I manage my emotions? Because it's my emotions, not theirs, that I'm trying to manage. And so when you get out of that situation, is being able to talk to, you know, trusted colleagues and friends that can help you really role play and think it out and think it through. All we need are some different alternatives on how to communicate and connect. When we have different alternatives, how to communicate and connect, then we have choices to respond. If we don't, we're going to fly off the cuff with what we know.
Yeah, and we know sisters flying off in the cuff in the workplace is not a good thing.
See my snaps on that one. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it's so not good. So not good. But no, that was really good, because it happens a lot with me. It's, you know, it's frequent, and I just need to let her know. And I do exactly what you say, which is, you know, is this a priority? Is this a high, you know, on the scale of 1 to 10, where is what you need me to do? You know, where is that? Because can it wait till I'm completed this task or what? You know, because it just helps me with my work day overall too. So let's talk about worry, being worried, worry and nervousness, experiences with those emotions in the workplace. Anybody have anything to share, stories to share about worry, being worried or nervousness?
I do. I'm in charge of our website, and the company that we purchased our website from, the CMS has become unstable. So there were times and periods where the website went down. And when I say you get 25 different emails from every person in your organization, the stress just builds and builds and builds. I mean, I could not go out into the hallway and somebody say, Stephanie, did you know? Stephanie, did you know? And and after so long, you're like, okay, I understand. I know. I'm working on it. Give me some slack. I mean, we were even having an employee function where they were celebrating a birthday or an anniversary, something like that. And I had been working, and I came into the meeting a little bit late. I did not make it 2 steps in the door before they were like, so-and-so said this was down on the website. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I just came in here to get some cake and tell this person, congratulations. And so it was very worrisome for me because it was a situation that was out of my control. I couldn't control it, and I was doing my best to manage everybody's comments and frustrations and still be able to effectively communicate with the web company how important it was, and then handle negotiations. So talk about stress and worry. That caused so much worry for me. And it's alleviated now, but when I went through it, I wasn't ready for it because I'm someone that wants to do my job right all the time. And so when you're like a perfectionist or it compounds and compounds. And so I have to say at that event, I was like, okay, can I just get some cake, and everybody's in there. So it was like not a good thing. They were like, and I looked like someone that couldn't handle the position that I was placed in. And so I learned from that experience that no matter what, you have, like you said, you have to harness your brand. You have to, pull it back in and just say, okay, just hear what they have to say, acknowledge it, and let them know you're going to work on it, and then just go back. You know what I mean? And so I had to learn that the hard way, but it was definitely a lesson that I needed to learn. So yeah,
it was semi out of your control. What happened really was out of your control. And I think what's the most irritating thing for me in situations like that is that your frustration level goes up here because it's something that's out of your control, but the perception is that you don't have it under control.
Right.
That's not necessarily true because things do happen. I mean, okay, the website went down. I mean, it was probably down when everybody was asleep, at home. And then it went, that next morning, but because it went down while everybody was sleeping, they weren't able to assess it that morning. It's like, okay, all of a sudden you're not competent. And I hate that when we can put those perceptions on you, and just allowing, the openness of, okay, glitch in the system, just have, let's rely on Stephanie to take care of it.
Right, right. So one of the other things I'll add to that, I think that was amazing, Stephanie, and how you came to realize, how influential that you can be during a crisis. And that speaks to, your leadership skills in that. And again, we don't learn how to manage these scenarios until the worst case scenario shows up. But that's a sign of a great leader with a very strong brand that you're developing to be able to diffuse those situations. Now, since you've had that experience, if and when that were to happen again, one of the ways to avoid those in the hallway confrontations is to send out a mass memo to everyone. And letting everyone know that the system is down. We're doing our best to be able to fix the problem, which may take several hours. Please allow our staff to be focused on resolving the problem by not posting, your questions and your needs, because we are aware that this is impacting your performance. Thanks in advance for your patience, and we look forward to get this up and running as soon as possible. And then when someone meets you in the hallway, you can say, and they say, oh, Stephanie, so-and-so is down and I can't do blah, blah, blah. You say, yeah, did you get the memo? You did it? So let me go ahead and I'm going to grab my cake and I'm going to resend the memo to you. And then just reply that you got the memo. So I think that's going to answer all your questions. Okay? Great. And you get your cake and you go on.
Yeah.
So part of it. That's smooth again, Sherry.
It was so smooth.
Yeah.
Because really what what a person is saying to you. They're really saying to you, do I matter? It's like, my work is important. I need to get it done. Me, 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 me. And
Yeah.
if people feel like they matter and that you hear them and that you're addressing whatever their frustration is, then it helps to diffuse it, and then you can be able to manage that stress, and you can be more proactive instead of reactive to it. So it's amazing what communication, clear communication, and thinking ahead can do to manage your emotions in the workplace. But it does take some practice, and Stephanie, you're on the right track.
Yeah, but let's take it a little deeper. Let's talk about worry and nervousness when you're dealing with coworkers or a manager who that may be trying to sabotage your success, or there may be some workplace bullying going on in the workplace, or maybe you're just working for a difficult boss that you're just not getting it, or they feel like you're not getting it. You know, how that worry and nervousness about, are you doing a great job, or how can I, kind of build these relationships with my coworkers, and how can I make this feel where I'm comfortable to come to work, and I'm not worried about, am I going to lose my job, or nervous. Let's take a little deeper than that and talk about how that impacts your productivity in the workplace.
Right, that's real talk, and let's be honest on this. Every job that we're at, sometimes it's time for us to go. And sometimes we spend a lot of time trying to make the relationship work. We spend a lot of time trying to manage the emotional cycle or emotional roller coaster we're on, with that boss or in that company or with those colleagues. And sometimes it's just really time to go. And that's where, we get to own our careers and really step up to them and be the leader in our own careers and manage that. I'm going to go back to the communication part, because that's what works in my career and has worked, and that's what I coach my clients to do. And it's so funny, on a side note in the same line, workplace bullying is so prevalent now. Workplace bullying is so prevalent now, and especially between millennia and the baby boomers and Gen Xers and Yers, because the millennial, and this is nothing against them, this is just an overall, cultural, just synapses, is that they've had access to tools and resources that allow them to produce some things quicker. And then the previous generations are like doing some things still kind of old school. So when you got two different cultures, in an organization, there can be some emotional frustration, there can be some bullying, and there may even be times where you feel like you're not able to perform based on what another group might be doing. And so,
did she freeze on us? I think she thinks she froze on us.
Recognizing the difference and really spending some time to understand. Did you get me? Sherry, are you there?
We can hear you. Yeah, we can see you and hear you.
Okay. I just want to make sure I was talking and everything froze. So back to the worrying part on that. Sit down and talk to your colleague. Have a one-on-one conversation with them to find out. Sit down and talk with your boss. And pull your review out, or whatever kind of projects that you and your boss have agreed that you're going to be working on, and check in on your performance during the delivery of a project. Don't wait until you get a project done. Don't wait until you feel like, or you run up against a roadblock and you can't get it, completed. Then, do a 2-week check-in and say, I just want to make sure, how am I going so far with this project? I want to check in with you to make sure I'm on the page and what you want me to do. And so bring them into the process until they say to you, you know what, you're handling it great, go ahead. Yeah. And let them back off on their own, because they will tell you, I think you're doing great, because they'll get frustrated, like, I don't want to keep trying to babysit you on this. I think you got it, so continue on and do what you're doing. So bring them in wherever you can on that. The other part, Sherry, to recognize, again, if you're in an environment and you feel like your boss may be sabotaging your success within the organization, I think it is time, to consider looking for other opportunities that will support your growth in the environment.
Yeah, but
so
I think
there may be some emotional, career challenges.
You may recognize that's what's going on, but until you find that other role, you still have to endure where you are. Yeah. So it's how do you cope until you're able to move out of that role into something different? Because we all know a job search is not a quick task. I mean,
right.
job, and it still may take you 7 months, 9 months, or whatever to find another job. So in the meantime, you know, you still have this worry and this nervousness that you're dealing with this job, and you have to endure until you're able to move out of that role. And that's what's hard. That is the piece that, and it, you know, for some people, maybe it's something they probably need to learn how to deal with to take it to the next level with their careers. But until then, you know, that's something that when you, I absolutely know that, you know, you're not set up for success. You have to deal with that worry and that nervousness every day until you're able to move on. Until push you out.
You can go into relationship management mode, you know, and know and recognize what it is, because when you know what it is and you call it by name, you know, then it's a different response to it. The other part is, and this is what I tell all my clients, we all need to be in career management mode. We should always be building our networks. We should be engaging with our professional networks. We should be looking at open job descriptions out there to see what's new, what's trending, what's changing in our industry, our profession. And we need to be, you know, working those relationships, you know, on the side of our job, so that we always have, you know, strong connections to pick up the telephone and say, hey, I'm going to be fast tracking, you know, my job search process. And so I think it's really important to massage those relationships so that you can see your way out. Because if you can see your way out, you can manage that relationship better.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I like what Sherry said, how some people aren't in the position to leave their job. Maybe they haven't been doing that networking that they needed to do. Maybe they haven't been building their portfolio. And sometimes running from the problem isn't the answer. Sometimes you have to go to the person that you are having the biggest problem with and find out what the problem actually is. And I mean, I think that relationship building goes a long way, because someone that may be against you today could be your biggest advocate tomorrow, because you took the time to build and repair that relationship. And I think that's critically important when you're trying to build a career and you're in a corporation or a small office even, and you haven't already created those networks so that you can move on. So I think, you know, like I said, going back to the core of the problem, because it might be you. You might need to learn something about yourself, you know, that you didn't know.
That's absolutely right. Because like I said, there may be a reason why you can't move yet, because there's something you need to learn so you can take that to the next role. But like I said, sometimes it is really, you know, sometimes you can try everything. You can try to build the relationships. Excuse my language. If they just want your ass gone, you're gonna be gone. And so you really need to think about it.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing you can do about that, you know. And Monica and I had this conversation before where, you know, I had a boss fly in and tell me it wasn't working out, and I never to this day still found out why it didn't work out when I was number 2 in the district in my numbers. So it was like, what really is you? Sometimes you just don't know. You just really don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't know, and you know, once you have, my philosophy is do the best you can do. And when any time that opposition rises up to you, then you can say, you know what, I've done the best that I can do. It's out of my control. I've sat down and asked point blank what the problem is. Or even if you didn't have a chance to ask what the problem is, just do the best that you can do, your best, and say, I've done the best that I can do, and it just wasn't for me. And be able to let it go. I think as women, we get stuck in the why mode. You know, we want to know all the answers to things, and sometimes it's just not for us to know all the answers, and we have to be ready to let that go. But I want to say something that's piggyback on what Stephanie said about, you know, what if it's you? I think one of the things as Black women that we tend to do is we tend to manage everybody else's emotions and put ours aside, and we don't speak up and say outside of the workplace, because we don't practice it there, and then we come into the workplace, we're not really executing or practicing, here's what I need, you know, to be able to be successful in what I'm doing. So that's really probably one of the first places to start, is to look at yourself and really see, how am I managing, you know, the emotions that I have? Is it me? And you get to be honest with it. I mean, I have clients all the time that will call me, and I do this too. I will call someone and say, you know, I read an email. Somebody wrote me a crazy email. and I really want to respond, and my fingers want to fly on the keypad and just really give it to them. And then I said, you know what? Let me stop and let me put this in front of somebody else who can be objective and really help me to see, am I being emotional about it? And if that person says, Venice, you're being emotional, and I can say, okay, so what's showing up that's saying for you to say I'm emotional? And then I said, wow, sometimes I hadn't even thought about it. I'm so busy trying to be right. and that's a problem, because when we get in our head that, see, Sherry, look at that, sound familiar? When we get in our own heads about being right, we're pushing that emotion to the end. We're pushing that to the finish line. Right. And so it really starts for us to, really stop and look at our emotions and look at the health of our emotions and really do some work outside of the workplace and getting ourselves spiritually grounded and getting ourselves surrounded with people that we can really go and be ourselves with, and be able to talk about the emotion we're experiencing to get a different perspective.
That is so key. When you said let it go, that's key there, because I think as Black women, sometimes we do hold on to it, whether it's work-related or personal. You can't let this bad relationship go, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me what I did.
Yeah,
you're going to tell me what's wrong. You can't even tell me after I done come to work early and put in extra time and what? Wait a minute. So yeah, it's hard for us. We bulldogs. We grab it.
And I think also, as I'm a single parent, I have my own business and then I work full time. So I sometimes am operating in overwhelm, in overwhelm mode. And not only that, I am in charge at home. I think we all experience that. We're go-getters. But, I'm in charge at home. I'm in charge of my business. But then I have to come to work and be a subject to somebody else. And I'm like, okay, I think I know the right answer. But sometimes I have to, kind of bow down and say, okay, this is an authority figure, and I need to respect what they have to say. And sometimes that's hard for me to do because I am the authority everywhere else I go. So and so it's a little bit difficult. But like you said, if you are spiritually connected, you understand there's a reason you're where you are, and you have to respect those boundaries. So, but it is difficult sometimes for me, especially when I'm constantly moving and doing so much. So.
Yeah, keep the main thing the main thing.
Right.
What if you got like 4 main things at the same time?
Yeah.
Then you really need to prioritize those 4 main things and stay in your lane. But I like what Stephanie said. I think it's important to think about there are 2 competing factors when you are in the workplace. One is driving towards the expectations of your managers. The second is driving your own career expectations. Mm-hmm. And so when you really think about, things that are coming up, the emotions, the frustrations, the irritations, I think you really owe it to yourself to really be, so even the dog is chiming in on this one. The dog is like, keep the main thing.
Keep the main thing, roof. Okay.
Yeah, keep the main thing. So I think that when you have those two competing goals, the way Stephanie said, when someone comes to you and really asks you to do something or interrupts you or stops you, and this person really is a catalyst, and you move into the next level of your career, you get to evaluate that. I think having your discernment hat on at all times, during these scenarios that show up, because life happens 8 o'clock, 8:01, it happens at 3:01, 5:01, lunchtime. So I think when you have your hat on of discernment and really get clear about, okay, where is this coming from? Is this going to help me to go advance my career, whether it's here, whether it's outside of here? Is this going to help me to strengthen my relationship, with this leader? So I need to manage these emotions in the best way possible and keep that in your mind and at the forefront, and you can do the best you can do. And again, sometimes when it's just out of your control, it's just out of your control. But, focus is really important, and pulling yourself back to focus. And I have to struggle with that every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that Stephanie makes a good point too, because I'm also a single mom and I'm juggling both of these as well. And I just had a conversation with Monica about I'm like, I'm just kind of like all over the place in terms of, this anxiety level I've got going because, the network is growing, and then I have my job I have to focus on, and so it's kind of like balancing the two. But the one thing I can say that has helped me is that, if I didn't have the network and some of the things that I experienced at work, I probably would, the emotions would probably escalate a lot more. But
Yes.
because I understand the purpose and where I am with that job, so when certain things happen, I tend to be able to think more clear in terms of how I respond to some of those things, because I know the bigger picture of where I'm trying to go. So I think sometimes that managing our emotions can help us when we really kind of have an end goal in mind of what our purpose is, not for just that job, but for life overall. To me, I think that can help to manage some of those things. But if you're one of those kind of people who your identity is wrapped up in your role, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, that's a huge problem, and you're looking for validation from externally and not internally.
Right.
And so when you recognize that, you get to shift, your experience with that and say, this really needs to come from inside out. Remember, it's the commanding and not the demanding is really where you want to come from. The other thing, Sherry, I'll add to that too in managing the stress in the workplace is, again, the part taking care of yourself outside of the workplace, but we need to really look at taking care of our health.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helps with managing your emotions before you get to work. So if you, can give yourself at least 20 minutes or 30 minutes in the morning time before you get to work, if you can take a walk, that's great, if that fits into your schedule. But being able to do some type of exercise prior to that, meditation is great. So if you can spend some time meditating for 10 minutes. So before, I'm a single parent, but my son is grown now, but being able to, before you wake the kids up, being able to just, give thanks and spend some time and really connect with spirit and say, the day is going to be a challenging day ahead. I know the universe is conspiring to give me all the tools and resources that I need to get through this day. So looking at ways to manage that, lowering your blood pressure, that's only going to help you to be better with managing the stress. Some folks we've been around, some sisters, they don't care what you throw at them, they never seem to be bothered. So they be like, child, I can't be worried with that, and they be serious. It's like a phenomenon. How you do that? Yeah, how you do that? So taking care of yourself health-wise and spiritual-wise outside of work is important. So try and get that balance. Getting a good night's rest of sleep is so important. I know we've been hearing a lot about that on health reports, but when you can get a good night's rest and you can actually get yourself 6 to 8 hours of sleep, where you can give your body time to rejuvenate and replenish, that helps you. Because when we get up in the morning, we ain't had enough sleep. It's like we've been sleepwalking. And we cranky from early in the day, and now we keep waking up with that crankiness, and here we come at work. Oh my God, here she comes, looking like she mad already. Because we didn't do that. Another thing is really trying as best as possible to have good balanced diet and staying away from junk food, staying away from fast food. I mean, how many times have we eaten stuff at lunchtime, come back and we all bloated, and we ate something that's not agreeing with us, and we're so busy focusing on what's happening on the inside of our body, chemically, biologically, and we've all scowled in the face. We can't hear nobody because my stomach hurting. So proper diet as best as you can, will help your mood swings as well. And get up from your desk sometime and go out and take a walk. Even if it's around the block at work, get up away from your desk so that you can give your eyes a rest, give your body a rest, and reconnect with yourself so that you can say, okay, round 2, we're pushing through until 5 o'clock. So I think those are some things.
That's so hard to do sometimes for some women. And not just us, as women overall. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to do, especially when you have a job that's demanding in terms of, whatever the role may be, that getting up from and I know I'm so bad about that. I'm one of those kind, I'll come in and hit the door at 9, and I'll work all the way through until it's time to go. And I'm bad about that. And then when I get home, it's like, okay, everybody leave me alone.
Yeah.
Nobody talk to me. But I'm really bad about not taking the time at work to just breathe.
Yeah, it's that mindfulness, and practicing that mindfulness is really something that we get to really, stretch ourselves to do, and it will become second nature, over time. When I started getting that tingling feeling on the sides of my head where I can feel the stress starting to come up, when I started feeling the irritation emotionally, when them sweats started to happen, and then I asked myself, we get some signals. We get signals.
Yeah.
When we're about to enter that zone, then I have to tell myself, okay, breathe. What am I thinking? Watch my thoughts. And this has come from practice. By no means am I saying that, voila, it'll happen and you can do it. But I'm practicing mindfulness as much as possible, because at the end of the day, I'm left with me. Them folks gonna go home. They ain't gonna be thinking about me. Most of the time, they're not thinking about me. They're going on to their soccer games or whatever they're doing, a happy hour, and they're not thinking about me being stressed and worried out. So it's really important for us to manage that.
Yeah, and I have learned how to create cool downs, whether that's gospel music, whether it's just pulling out my Bible and just reading some scripture. I said, Lord, talk to me. Whatever it is that I need to bring me back from 10 back to 2 or 3, because it's good to be a little energetic. But whatever it is I need to do to bring me back to being me, I have learned how to incorporate those practices, because like you said, you can feel it coming up. You can feel it all starting to mount on you. It feels like everything is on top of you. And so, like you said, going out to take a break for lunch, I don't care if I bring my lunch. I will go and walk around the building, or I'll get in my car. I have to get outside for a minute, let the sun hit me. There are certain things that really help me to come back and be refocused. And then I'm ready to tackle the rest of my work day because I've taken that break.
Yeah. I love the part when you said about having that, having your scripture there. So one of my girlfriends bought for me a little hand Bible to put into my desk. And it was, because as an entrepreneur, not Stephanie, but as an entrepreneur, you just know all kinds of things come up with customers and events and things of that sort. But really having, something tangible that I can stop and just read for a moment, or take it to the bathroom, in the stall, and just say, what, I need to find me a scripture right now because I'm going through something and I need to get my emotions in check so that I can be able to rethink this, and let me get the scripture and meditate on this, even if it's for 2 or 3 minutes, on that. Sometimes you may need to call your prayer warrior and say, okay, I need some interceding right now because it's something about to go off.
Wait, and I'll tell you, I start my work day in the bathroom in prayer. I start every work day that way, because I know that sometimes we face battles, let no weapon formed against me prosper. That kind of thing. And I pray, Psalms 23, I do whatever I need to do to bless my day. And that helps me to feel better and strengthen in my day, because I feel like I go in the day with the Lord on my side, and I ask him to direct my path and make it straight, and to suture my lips when I don't need to say something that I feel like saying. As soon as somebody says it, I want to react too fast. So, with the Lord on my side, I feel much more confident going into the work day as well. And I pray for productivity as well, efficiency and productivity, and that's just something that I do that I find has blessed me. You
mentioned those two, the productivity and efficiency, because, like you said, anything can happen during the day, and then, of course, you're off track. And my prayer that I have, and I keep it on my desk, I keep it at home, is Psalms 91, a prayer of protection. So you have all that going on around
me. I'm in the bubble. So whatever happens, I'm in the bubble.
So Psalms 91 is my prayer of protection. So when I have people come up and say, what is that? Prayer protection.
Yeah, be advised.
So, all this is going around me, but it's not, it's going to go right past me. So, and that doesn't mean that I still won't be attacked, or it still doesn't mean that things won't happen, but I'm strong enough to know that whatever it is, I'm going to be okay. And that, it's not going to be just this blow to where I'm just going to be devastated where I can't get back up. So for me, that prayer for me is very important. That's like my battle shield when I walk in the door. But let's talk about getting angry and aggravation. Who's ever experienced really getting? We're not talking frustration. We're talking about anger. Where you have seriously been angry in the workplace for whatever the situation was.
Well,
Right.
I've experienced the anger situation once with one of my direct reports, to where she kind of went off on me, and it took everything in me not to go back off on her. I had to stop, and she slammed the door like in my face too, and I had to stop. Yes.
She got real ugly, didn't she?
Yeah, right. I stopped and I stood there for a minute, and I was like, Lord, help me, just help me, just help me. And then when she came out the bathroom, I did have to say a quick little prayer, and I had to tell her that, look, I understand you're angry, I understand you're upset, and I tried to calm her down. And then at the end of it, I'm like, well, you can't talk to me that way. You can't slam the door in front of me. And she got loud. And by the grace of God, I didn't snap back and just go in. I don't know how I did it, to be quite honest. Because I didn't want to snap back at her like, who you think you talking to, you da-da-da-da-da. So you tell me, what's the smooth way to do that?
Well, you did it. Number one, you had your prayer protection bubble. When she went in the bathroom, so that got you right there. But Monica, you said something really, really. That's that commanding respect. Is I understand that you're angry or upset with me right now. So acknowledging that, and from your space of calm, and pointing that out to the person, because sometimes people get angry. I don't think they realize that they're angry. And how it's really coming out. Right. And I also acknowledge too that there's something else coupled with that. That's adding, feeling that anger, because sometimes you can say, how did something I do so simple, or how did something so small blow into something so big?
Right.
You really get to recognize there's more to it than that. So I think what you said is really standing up for yourself. A scenario I had with a client who her boss was really angry with her at work, happened to be male and female, happened to be two different generations, and he called her and yelled at her on the phone, and yelling and screaming at her on the phone, and she was on the other end bawling and crying. And then she hung up the phone with him, let him finish yelling and screaming at her, hung up the phone, and then she went home, and then she called in and quit the next day. And then of course she was, that anger had welled up in her. It was like, no, you ain't gonna talk to me that way, and I don't know who you think you talking to, and blah blah blah. And I said to her, at what point in that conversation did you stop him and tell him you were disconnecting, discontinuing that conversation? And she said, no time, I just let him go on and on. And I said, so, he really wasn't respecting you. And I said, another way to consider handling that is to stop someone in the middle of their anger coming to you and say, you know what, it seems like you're very emotionally charged right now. So what I would like to do is to stop this conversation, and then let's pick it up at a time when I think that it's reasonable for you and me. And if that person isn't responding to you and they're still yelling off, then you get up and you walk away. Because at the end of the day, it's like, I don't let people treat me like that in no place in my life, and I'm not going to let somebody treat me like that just because they're giving me a paycheck.
Right.
And I think that person will stop and say.
But her situation is that she really didn't know how to handle and cope with that. I mean, you've given her the tools now, but it's absolutely. Yeah. So, she needed to know, now she's learned this lesson of, if it happens again, this is what I know I can do. Unfortunately, sometimes we just don't have the tools at the time that the situation arises, and then we may not make the best decision, or we might respond the way we need to.
Right. Life's a teacher.
What you don't know sometimes can hurt you, but when you know better, you do better. So at that point, now she knows if it happens again, what she can do. Sometimes it's just the way it is.
And I'll say this, I love the fact that you keep referencing command and demand, command and demand. And I know that this is an area of a great takeaway for everyone that's watching. Will you please take the time to clarify what you mean when you say command versus demand?
Right. So the command, remember, it came from respect. And so it comes from, we automatically demand respect. You're going to respect, you're going to talk to me this way, you're going to give me this. It's all about what you're going to do for me, and telling somebody how to be in relationship with you. And command is when you are teaching people how to be in relationship with you. And as I was preparing earlier today, that's what resonated with me from this morning, because it was like, well, really, what is this really about at the end of the day? It's about respect, and it's about knowing that I matter. in this relationship with you. So whether it's a work relationship or whether it's with family members and friends, I want to know that what I feel and what I think matters. Mm-hmm. Because if I feel heard, and if I feel that what my needs matter to you, then I'm going to be a completely different person. But if I feel like that you're not really supporting me, you're not paying attention to what it is that I need, I'm going to be that other person. So we really want to focus on that, commanding respect and teaching people how to be to work with us and how we should work with them, and instead of demanding from people what we think we're due.
Okay, so to kind of add to that, if I can, to further clarify, commanding respect is approaching a situation in a professional manner and with respect for that person and their position, where demanding is almost you're responding out of your emotion as opposed to critically thinking about the situation and determining how you can handle it. So
absolutely.
Okay, that's
I think the two key words that you said here, even with the command and demand, is also the critical thinking, the critical thinking skills. That's huge in terms of, how am I going to command and demand? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And how am I going to do that? And I talk about that with my students, is that, let's talk about developing critical thinking skills, because that's something that's going to help you to kind of manage how you do deal with things emotionally. So I think that's a good takeaway from viewers as well, is thinking about what is your level of critical thinking skills. Right.
I will add to that, Sherry. I'll add to that too, is the mindfulness. Is to be mindful, always be present and be mindful. So when you're present in a situation, meaning I'm experiencing how I'm feeling right now. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel comfortable. I don't like this. But I need to change and shift this situation. So now that I'm present and I recognize how this is making me feel, then that creates an opportunity to be able to shift the outcome that you want, shift into the outcome that you want. So I will add mindfulness, in that critical thinking, and with the command and demand, for women to put in their toolbox, to be able to reach for that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about dislike, disappointment, unhappiness, and what some of those things derive from, in the workplace. It goes back to the command, the demand, the critical thinking skills. But what if is it that you just don't like a coworker, or you just don't like your boss? It's not that you guys are being effective in your roles, but what if you just dislike the person, or you just like the company culture, or maybe you just like the company because they pay well, but everything else is crap. I mean, and then, or you get this job and you're disappointed because it was one thing and it's not another, and then you're unhappy. It's like, okay, so let's talk about some of the things that viewers can probably do to change that, because you don't have to be stuck, right? You don't have to be stuck with this.
And here's the fact of the matter. We're not going to like everybody, and everybody ain't for us to like, and everybody ain't going to like us. That's just, it is what it is. So let's call a spade, people. So I think what's important too is to think about, because this happens a lot, especially, and Stephanie, in terms of getting clients, is sometimes people come to you because they do want the services that you offer or the products that you offer. They've read and heard some amazing things about you, but they can be some of the craziest clients. And you're like, I don't like this client, and I'm not quite sure why I don't like this client. Why is this rising to the top? I'm present. What am I feeling and experiencing from this client? And I think it's when you're present in that moment and you can be mindful and you start paying attention to what you're experiencing, and you can put a finger on it, I think you can then react and respond better to it.
Well, that's true. That's true. I had a job that I was working at, and I hit it off with everyone. It was this one particular lady. It's not that our personalities clash, but it was something about her. I said, you know what? If she doesn't set right with me, is it something about her that doesn't set right? And so going on, working there, and I started to see these little certain quirky things about her that to me showed someone who could not be trusted, or that was not a team player.
Yeah.
So as other people were going on, I said, "Oh, this person, she's just so great." She said, "I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Yeah, I'll see."
You can't do that, Sherry. You can't do that.
eventually, some of the things, some of the concerns that I had about her from the very beginning started to manifest themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here I was, the only person on the team that was like saying something's not right with her. And then eventually it presented itself and everybody was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm like, well, I don't know why, because I already told you something's wrong with it from the beginning.
And everybody doesn't bring that sense of presence.
I think she froze on us.
Yeah.
Sherry, things that some go ahead. We're freezing. We've come
What I will say is
her background like me. You know, when you come from an HR background like me, you have to learn how to cipher through all those personalities and kind of assess. You have to assess somebody up real fast. You know, and if they prove you wrong, then you just deal with that. But I was on target about her. I said something's not right with her, and she turned out to be exactly on the other side of the fence that I thought she was. So,
but you know what, Sherry, you said something really important when you kind of put your finger on it, and you still had to work with her. I think you stayed in that lane with her. You know, this is the lane I'm going to work with you in. If you discovered that trustworthiness was an issue with her, then you wasn't sharing anything with her that needed to be trusted, or exposing her or putting her in positions where she would have the opportunity to say, yeah, I'm not trustworthy. So once you figure that out about people, get with them in that lane and don't go with them outside of that. Thinking that they're going to be somebody that they're not.
Where they are. If you meet them where they are, and that's when you can tailor make your communication to them specifically. And with her, that's what I did. And so I even went out of my way specific times to show gestures of things that she had done that the team benefited from, even though I personally did not like her.
Right.
Based on what I had seen, but what she did for the team, I thought was a good thing. So I had I shared something with her that to say, hey, I like what you done. That was pretty cool, but she kind of knew in her own way that I didn't care for her much, but I never verbally came out and said it, and I try to make sure that my body language is mindful about making sure I'm not giving off that vibe to her that I really don't like you. I have to work with you. But I don't feel comfortable working with me because I don't like you.
Right. I think that is a brave thing. That's another good sign of managing your brand, is that you're keeping the main thing.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And we got company goals that even personally I feel a certain kind of way personally, but I really need to divorce from that personal feeling and keep the main thing and focus on the company goals. And that's really what you did.
We have a question from Michelle Carroll. Michelle says she had the same situation and I wanted to quit, but was advised to confront the person. It's important to set boundaries as to how others treat us. And you are right, Michelle. Absolutely right.
Yeah, that's that commanding instead of demanding. That's that commanding, because this kind of stuff is real. That happens in any workplace, whether you're self-employed or whether you're working for someone else, or even if you're volunteering with projects, community stuff. That's something that can come up.
Yeah, and you really have to learn how to do that. We had a career conversation. Was it last couple of months ago, Monica? Remember we had one of the ladies who she had a customer that was very demanding.
Oh yeah.
She was ready to just fire him, just get him the boot. And we had to, and she was being very passive aggressive in her communication with him. And so instead of putting back in like you said, commanding, what she needed from him, in order for them to have that level of respect for each other and setting the boundaries, of course. So we came back and gave her some ideas of what she could do to kind of shift her mindset and shift the position of the relationship between the two of them. And then when she came back to the next career conversation, she was telling us about, what the suggestions that we had made had worked, and now the relationship's a lot better.
I recently experienced something very similar with a client of mine. Our communication was poor to almost non-existent. And I was at the point where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give you everything you want so we can go ahead and end this contract. And I mean, I had a cease and desist order ready, like the contract is I mean, really. And you know, I had to speak to a friend of mine too. Her name is Delmar Johnson, and she really helped me to identify the key areas in our contract that we weren't communicating efficiently on. And so by really expressing what I felt like were the major issues in our contract and our communication, we were able to address it, have a great time, and now we have a really great relationship, and communication is wonderful. But it took me really addressing and kind of, like you said, harnessing what could be done versus what can't be done, you know, because sometimes clients place demands on us. They know what they want, and they'll just keep sending it, and you have to say, okay, hold on. This is what our contract allows for. If we want to address this, this is how we do it. And so just having those critical conversations is very important, and so that definitely helped me with the client as well. So I've been there, done that. I understand.
And I've actually had a potential client who I disliked. I started to dislike. At first, I liked the person, and I knew their energy was a little different, Sherry, and I liked the person. And then the person kept writing me emails, Stephanie, and he just kept, you know, asking for certain pieces. Like he wanted to pull my business service model apart. He wanted to pay this time and then get a little bit more and pay that time and get a little bit more. And I really had to stop and think about, do I really want to serve a person, you know, have a person as a client that I'm starting to not like? I'm starting to dislike this person. So I ended up writing this person an email and telling them that, you know, I've reconsidered the opportunity of providing them with career coaching services, and at this point I'm rescinding the opportunity to continue further, and I wish him best in pursuing his career goals. And I said to him basically that I was, due to the constant requests, you know, to compromise my business model, you know, as well as the engagement services, that I wasn't a good resource for him. You know, and I had to really be gingerly and just kind of say, I got to break up with you because you're going to become one of them customers that I'm not like. And Stephanie, and I wouldn't have been the one pouring in all this extra stuff to just get rid of you. I would have been like, no, let me write you a check back.
Exactly.
And, you know, and I didn't want to get to that point. You know, so, you know, when you get it on the front end that it's somebody that you're going to dislike or possibly dislike, and you're starting to feel that energy and they're showing up that way, I think that you got to really decide on how you want to work things out or let things go.
Wouldn't that be great if we can do our bosses like that?
Have you ever seen that movie, Horrible Bosses? Did you see that movie, Horrible Bosses?
I haven't seen that.
I would love to be able to just write, you know, just look here, right now. I want a new boss.
So you watch that.
I want a new boss.
Watch that movie when you guys get a chance about Horrible Bosses with Jason Bateman in it. It's a great movie. And Sherry, what I'll do is I'll repost a blog for the network that I wrote about, a blog I wrote about when you hate your boss. You know, so that, you know, you can be able to just kind of see, well, what are some options, you know, that I can do when, you know, when things aren't working out with the boss. And so that's real talk. That's real life.
Yeah, that's real talk, because, you know, I mean, everybody's had a boss they can't stand or a boss that they know they couldn't trust. I mean, come on. And I know this. I've told you and I've told Monica that I had my boss told me you shouldn't trust me either. I'm like, okay, what the, you know, when your boss tells you, okay, I repeat, if your boss tells you that you shouldn't trust him either, then what do you do?
Right. Well, what did like Maya Angelou said, you know, the person then told you that they can't be trusted. So now you get to choose to operate from a different place and perhaps consider an exit strategy. You know, if this person is always going to be in the background sabotaging, that's like walking on a landfill. You just don't know when the bomb's going to blow up.
Right.
I do agree with that. You know, like my Angela said, if they show you who they are, believe them.
Believe them. Believe them. Believe them. Can't get no clearer than that.
All right, Monica, do you have any takeaways from tonight's career conversation with everybody?
Was awesome. I mean, obviously, command and demand. That is like the big ones for me that really made me think back in some situations to where, you know, I might have flipped between the two. And really need to be mindful, you know, going forward with regards to that. So I think that was huge, and I hope a lot of ladies on the call or on the hangout pick that up as well, because I think that was a huge takeaway. I thank you for that. It's giving me a different way of looking at things, and now I'm going to make sure I'm more mindful as I move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sherry, the dog got some takeaways too, Sherry.
Girl, the dog's about to be taken away to the pound if he don't stop barking. Oh, God. Venice, what about you? Some takeaways from tonight's career conversation. Take her off for me.
You know, I think all of the
I didn't want her
different Are you managing your emotions, Sherry? Are you managing your emotions with the dog, Sherry? So for me, I think the takeaway is from
my emotions very well right now, you all.
For me, the takeaway with Stephanie was really the scenarios about managing her brand and really stepping into being a great leader. I think that those scenarios that she shared with us, she practiced mindfulness, even though that wasn't the word or phrase that she used. But I really, you know, see the opportunity to step more into having a strong professional brand, you know, if you are rising to the occasion of being a good leader and leading, you know, and that by example. So that's my takeaway, one of my many takeaways. It's been a great conversation, really great conversation.
Okay. All right, Stephanie, what about you?
Well, you know, mine, of course, are the command and demand, and just, you know, just understanding the clarity in that, because I really appreciate, you know, Benicia putting it out there, because a lot of people don't realize that they are demanding things, and that doesn't generate a response. What generates a response is how you respond to those bad behaviors, because everybody can see when somebody is yelling at you, or if they're inappropriate, or if they're treating you differently, or if they are sabotaging your career. Everybody can see that from the outside looking in, but how you respond to it says so much about your character that it is commanding respect. And so I'm in love with that. I'm just going to tell you I'm in love with it, because I have always been that, you know, bulldog demand. They could look at me and say, don't mess with her. You know, she's going to eat somebody's lunch today, you know. And so I have always been in this place of demanding respect, and I just love the aptitude and the thought behind commanding respect instead. So that's definitely my big takeaway. And I just love the conversation tonight. It's been wonderful hearing everything. Sherry, especially your stories, those were really good, so I've enjoyed it. Mm-hmm.
Well, real quick, Delmar Johnson said that she's so glad that helped you in the contract process, Stephanie, and that she said this conversation has been awesome. So many things I've spoken about in various HR and career development training in and outside of the class that she currently teaches. So she an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
And it has been, I think, my takeaways has been a lot of things. Of course, command and demand, Venice.
I'm going to get a T-shirt. I'm getting a T-shirt.
I know, I'll get one too. I want one too.
You know, which is great, but I think, too, is that, you know, we all, I think I love when we share, because a lot of times we all have similar situations or stories, or we've seen someone experience the same things before that we have. And that's what we want our viewers to walk away with, is knowing that they're not by themselves in terms of the things that they've experienced and what they could currently be going through, you know, right now. And so, you know, think about the command and demand that Venice talked about, you know, and learning how to, and we do this because, I mean, and just to say this on the side, you know, we got a husband or a boyfriend or something we're talking to, we try to command, you got to respect me, brother, you going to do this, you know. You going to treat me right, and you going to buy me flowers, you know, whatever. But we do then we don't express that same type of, or we don't know how to do that. So I think if you can learn how to do that in your personal life, then you should be able to carry it over into your professional life, and create a balance between the two. And that's sometimes hard to do because we kind of think of them as separate. But if we carry the same type of values and principles in both, it'll make it a lot easier to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think that we have, this is it again. Yeah, our viewers, thank you for, watching our career conversation again. If you're not a member of Black Career Women's Network, please join. This is just one of many career conversations that we'll be having every other Wednesday at 8 p.m. And you can join our network at bcwnetwork.com. You can follow us on Twitter. You can also like our Facebook page as well, the same handle. This actual career conversation will be downloaded on our YouTube page. Share it with your friends so they can also view it, and you can also start a new conversation and some comments after you watch the video. We can keep the conversation going. How about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I want to go ahead and end this like I do with the rest of our videos with this saying that I have of mine, which is to know your worth, work in your strength. What do I say, Monica? I jacked all up tonight, didn't I? Hey, we are only women, and we have to keep it real, okay? That's right. But like I said, typically what I say is know your worth, and work in your purpose. I have to do that. Sorry about that. So know your worth, discover your strength, and work in your purpose. Until the next Wednesday that we talk to you guys, have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.